Then chapter 11, we see Yahweh promise that a remnant will return. Ezekiel 11:19 says that I will give them one heart and a new spirit I will put within them. I will remove the heart of stone, and I will give them a heart of flesh. See, Ezekiel has to see the whole story and the grandeur of it so that the promise is as weighty as it's meant to be. We have an over-familiarity with certain promises, and we lose the narrative that adds drama to the story for how we are supposed to receive it for ourselves. This was so bad that the glory of God refused to dwell in the temple he had commanded to be constructed for him to dwell in. The idolatry and unfaithfulness and wickedness were so rampant that his people fell under judgment, were driven to Babylon, and yet God says, I'll go be with them and I'll still be faithful. But this isn't how it can ever work. Because your heart is so hard, you have driven me from your midst. How am I going to fix that? I'm telling you, a remnant will return, but they have to return differently. I'm going to give them a new heart. Their heart of stone actually has to be removed from them, and I'm going to give them a heart of flesh. So then Genesis chapters 12 through 24, very quickly, judgments coming to Israel. 25 to 32, judgment on the nations. Chapter 33, there's a refugee that reports to Ezekiel that Babylon has indeed attacked and the temple is destroyed. Everything he has been shown as a prophet is just playing out in history. But the story's not over. Chapters 34 to 37, there is hope for Israel. God will fulfill his promise in chapter 11, that promise, by raising up a new Israel under a new Davidic king, the Messiah to come. He will remove their hard heart, send his spirit inside them. And what does it mean to have the Spirit of God inside you? It means the inclination you had to disobey is now the inclination to obey. Then there's the famous prophecy right there. Chapter 37, the Valley of Dry Bones. Now when I tell it, understand the whole story. Ezekiel goes and sees a valley of bleached, scorched, picked clean, dry bones, skeletons everywhere. They are as dead can be. It speaks on multiple levels. This is Israel in their covenant unfaithfulness to God. The nation is filled with the death of sin and rebellion. It is, in a sense, a picture of the death of that covenant that brought about their death through rebellion. But he talks to Ezekiel and he says, what do you see, Son of Man? They have the whole story. Ezekiel says, well, you know, Lord. You'd be a little cautious at this point too, probably, right? And they have a little conversation. Prophesy. Speak to the breath. Call it to life. And the Valley of Dry Bones is a picture of this passage, this promise becoming real. The dead thing is miraculously and supernaturally turned into a new living creation. Out of the death that came from the judgment and violation of the law, the Spirit was put inside those dead, dry bones. And they lived again. And it's a prophecy of how God will bring Ezekiel 11:19 to pass. It is a work of the Spirit. It is the Spirit of God inside you. No matter how dead you have felt in the past, how much your name has stuck to you in the most negative of ways, how corrupt you think your DNA was at a natural level, sickness, infirmity. I have it, I'm Italian and I'm angry all the time. Whatever you think, your DNA and your name have an appointment with destiny when the Spirit comes to live inside you and you give the Spirit free rein. Paul will talk to the Galatians over and over, and I'll get to that. He's going to say, you foolish Galatians, having begun by the Spirit, are you now seeking to be perfected by the flesh? See, the valley of dry bones is all about what the Spirit does when it gets inside of you. You can't help but get up and be alive again. You can't help but get up and be a new creation. The new heart and the new creation is God's idea of total restoration. It's not just a gospel of forgiveness and salvation. It is a gospel of total transformation. We have underbelieved the promise of God for too long. Jeremiah 31, behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord. Now, this is not Ezekiel. This is Jeremiah. The major prophets, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Jeremiah, all point to the new covenant. I will make a new covenant, not like the covenant that I made with their fathers on the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. Not like the covenant with Moses. That's what that's saying. It's not like the covenant I made with Moses. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares the Lord. I will put my law within them, and I will write it on their hearts. They shall all know me. And it ends with this, I will remember their sin no more. Do you know that we read that and we instantly knock off about 40% and we believe it at about 60%? I will remember their sin no more. And yet you and I spend more time remembering our sin than God does. So we don't really believe that. We believe that's poetic. We believe that's inspiring. But secretly, God is up there with his checklist, and every time you screw up, he's like, there we go again. The new covenant is something far more glorious. It's a revelation of God far greater than our measly little stingy God who's always fact-checking your life to see where you screwed up again. He's promising, I want to change your mindset. I want to change your ideas about me. I'm just going to whisper and hint now because you're actually under a covenant that doesn't permit it, because that covenant is written on stone and it's unyielding. You do good, I will bless you. You do poorly, you sin, you violate my law, and we are duty bound. We're in covenant. Under this covenant, the terms of that covenant are, you do well, I bless you. You do badly, I curse you. That's the deal. And the nature of that covenant being external to our reality means, guess what? You're going to keep screwing up. You're going to keep coming under judgment. You got to get a new heart. You got to become something other than who you are. And part of the promise of and goodness of God in that is, I'm not actually going to relate to you out of your sin anymore. Moses himself, the lawgiver, said, the Lord your God is going to circumcise your heart one day and the heart of your offspring. Why? So that you will love him with all your heart and all your soul. You're going to be unreserved. You're going to get such a window into the goodness of God. You're going to see him for who he really is, because he's not external to you anymore. He's right inside you. And out of that, you can't help but give him everything you are. And if that's not the life you're living, it's because we don't have that revelation yet. That's what we're going to get over these 2 days. How do we become untethered from all of the baggage that keeps us constantly looking at our own failure rather than his glorious promise at work within us, so that the name he has given us and the DNA he's put inside of us causes us to grow into his likeness as the seed reproduces after its kind? One more from Jeremiah. I will make with them an everlasting covenant. Everyone say everlasting. When you sin, does it change? It's not, God's not fickle. The law was fickle. It was fixed, but it was fickle. The law was so unbending, I should say it this way, the law was so inflexible that all of your inconsistency would break upon it. It would reveal every inconsistency your Adam nature brought to the equation. It was rigid, it was inflexible, and it wasn't relational. It's simply a code of conduct you're supposed to do. So every failure of your life is measured against the perfection of the law, and you can't help but fail. But this is an everlasting covenant where God promises not to turn away from doing good. In the law, do you know that the judgment was a turning away from doing good? It was a doing harm to the people. It was retribution and penalty for their failure and their sin. He's saying, I don't want to relate to you like that, and I'm going to put something in place where I'll never turn away from doing good to you again. The fear of me will be in your heart so that you won't turn from me. See, we fear a message like this, like, well, this is going to get into greasy grace and it's going to get sloppy. No, you have to go all the way into this. You got to go as far into this as you can, because that's what changes your heart. It's the mixture that keeps you stuck. I will rejoice in doing them good. How many of y'all have a bad day and it's like, well, I had that coming. God's really trying to talk to me and get my attention. I will rejoice in doing them good. I will plant them in this land with faithfulness. He says, I'm going to do this with all my heart and my soul. He is committing his entire being to you experiencing him in that way. And when you do, all of your heart and all of your soul responds to all of his heart and all of his soul.